on episode 27 of Convergence. Hello, it's me again. Your food is continuing to gaslight you. I meet the mayor of Bike Shed, and Brendan is planning his 40th birthday party.
A stark difference that I feel from the time zone where I was living in unhealth to now where I feel like I'm much closer to health. Like now I can eat a food and recognize its impact on me. Whereas before I would just eat something and I'd be like, oh, somebody says that this is bad, but I don't notice any difference. It's, whatever. Then we kind of talked about like your food is gaslighting you, which I still think about that. I love that. I just love that. But also like if you're kind of just constantly giving yourself those types of foods, you're not going to have a reaction because you're just always reacting and you think that that's just normal. And I thought it was just normal for decades because I didn't know any better. I didn't have any reference point of what things were like without it. And now I have this base level of feeling good, and I'll eat a bag of like, they're not corn puffs, but they're like cassava flour puffs. So like I try to get the healthiest processed food, which is still not healthy at all. But I'd like to tell myself like, oh, it uses extra virgin olive oil instead of safflower oil, and it's all good now. But no, it's still I eat the whole bag because they're so freaking yummy and crunchy, and it feels so delicious in the mouth, and so I just eat the whole thing, and then it's like my belly and my abs and my I just get so bloated, and then like my arms and fingers get all puffy and inflamed, and I can just really tell the difference immediately from eating the wrong types of foods for my body.
Yeah, it sounds like the thing is for you now that you are a more well-toned machine, that you notice, that rattling sound in the, in the glove compartment a lot more, or that dent or whatever, because it's like, yeah, everything's quite sort of toned.
So that leads me into something that I've been thinking about for God Mode is this the concept of willpower. Right, I've had some thoughts about it. Like I've had like willpower is important and it's necessary and it's essential for change. But willpower, obviously, alone isn't enough, and there's no you don't have an infinite amount of willpower. Willpower only lasts so long. It's an endurance thing. It's like it's sprinting. You can't sprint the whole time. For a race, you gotta pace yourself.
And I think it comes from a place of stability as well. You have to be be grounded.
Yeah.
To be able to be resourced to have it. Because it is a resource.
And so like you can be motivated in certain ways to use your willpower to start something. But willpower alone will not sustain you. You need to be able to, whatever it is that you're using willpower to start to do, that new thing that you're doing needs to have its own benefit and reward system inherent in it for you to be able to continue on past your willpower's expiration. Or
yeah, it's like I got my e-bike, and I can use the throttle to get the bike started. But if I'm going up a steep hill, I've still got to pedal because the throttle's not going to actually give me enough power to get up the hill. And that which gets us into the whole James Clear thing of Atomic Habits, making them attractive, achievable, whatever the other two things are, easy and satisfying.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good list.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's definitely achievable, I might be mixing that up with something else, but yeah, making it attractive, making it rewarding, making it satisfying, and making it easy. I think those are the 4 things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much essential.
Because otherwise it's not going to stick.
Yeah, so that's just another case of me reinventing the wheel, thinking I had an original idea, and everything is everything.
But that's a good sign, man, because it's like, if someone else has they're only a little bit ahead of you in terms of like they just happen to have written the blog post, but it's like it's obviously a good idea because you came to it yourself.
Yeah, it's reinforcing like I'm on the right path and I'm tapped into the things I want to be tapped into that I think are right and real, and so that feels good. And not that I was like hinging anything on that, like, oh, I had this great idea and nobody's ever thought of it before.
Well, his whole thing was, a lot of it was based on, he's the first to say, like, he was just a nerd and into this kind of stuff, and he just compiled his research and put it into a thing. That's what any thought leader is doing.
Yeah, exactly.
None of it's original. It's just syntheses. So, how is the sort of fallout and all of that stuff? I guess we're still in limbo.
Yes, no results yet. Yep. I'll hear something next week, either results or I need more time. So that's the update there. I just feel, the more I think about it, I just feel so much more justified. Every time I think about it, I'm like, I was right. I don't. What is there to think about?
Sleep in the sleep of the righteous. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're gonna say whatever they say, but I was right, and I wish the best for that dude. And he didn't even finish everything that was on my list of stuff to do.
Funny, the whole knowing you're right thing. I posted something to Threads yesterday that I didn't realize would be spicy, but it got some people like mad. And it's a thing we've discussed a lot before, and it was one of my, I've been posting these daily podcast tips.
Okay.
And I've been putting them on LinkedIn and Instagram, and because I make a little image and then I write some text, and I thought I'll put a condensed version of these out on Threads. And
what's Threads?
Threads is Meta's social network that is a competitor to Twitter/X.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually all right. For the most part, it's nice and it's pretty good. Yes, it's an algorithm thing. They haven't figured out how to put ads into it yet, so that'll happen. But for the most part, for the time being, it's kind of all right.
They haven't figured it out, or they're trying to get everybody hooked on it while it's still kind of nice, and then
oh god, yeah, they'll turn the screw.
Yeah, for sure.
They'll absolutely turn the screw.
But the
interesting thing is, they are joining the Fediverse. So social networks like Mastodon, which is what they call a federated social network, meaning that you can create your own server, a bit like Discord in a sense, and you can host it yourself, and your stuff can be your own, and then you can throw it out to the web, and it's a lovely idea, and it's only nerds that are using it at the moment. But their Threads have said almost from the beginning, we are going to join the Fediverse, meaning that those people who are on Mastodon, and there's there might be one or two other networks using the same underlying system, but Mastodon's the main one. That anyone, you can follow someone on Mastodon, you can follow someone who's using Threads and follow them on Mastodon, and at some point vice versa. So essentially, you don't have to go to Threads to be on Threads. which is kind of the dream, the dream of like social networks or messaging services of old, where you didn't have to use their specific app, and then you don't have to have their algorithmic timeline, you don't have to have their ads. So that's kind of dope. So that's interesting, and they are actively working towards it. It hasn't just been an empty promise, but we'll see what happens. But I posted to them yesterday. I posted to threads yesterday, and I just did my one about like use the singular you when talking to listeners. Like, not nothing too spicy. But it got a couple of people like, no, like no. And I was quite surprised. Like, one or two people were like, yeah, that's cool, or that's interesting, and a couple of people were like, no.
Did they say anything along with that? Like why they were so vehemently opposed to the idea of speaking to more than one person?
Yeah, it's such a controversial topic, right?
Yeah.
So the first one was totally disagree. Everybody listens on their own, but wants to feel part of a community of listeners, which is not what I was saying. And so I tried to explain. I was like, communities of listeners are made up of individuals who aren't in the same physical space. You all, you all for when you actually see those around you, like in a Zoom room, and you, the singular, for when you can't see them. And like, thumbs up, as in like, there you go, made my point.
Right.
That's it. We don't have to continue the conversation if we don't want to. Like, that is my kind of way of saying, cool.
Yep.
We done.
No hard feelings.
And he ddidn't like that. He was like, obviously you don't get my point. And then some like passive aggressive comment. So I just cool, all right, done. But that's fine. I'm not gonna get into it with you. Because because like when you write these things, you've got to take a position. And so, I said, we don't, this is the actual post is, we don't listen to podcasts in groups. When you refer to your listener as everybody or guys, you create distance between them and you. If I impress upon one thing in the podcasting industry in my time on this earth, it's that we should all be speaking to the single listener and removing everybody, guys, and you out there from our podcasting vocabularies. So, it's taking a viewpoint.
I like it as a listener, actually. I have heard you saying that for a long time, and then I didn't really think about it too much, but I noticed it at one point from a different podcaster. And what was kind of funny is that, and I liked it. I was like, oh, that actually, it feels really connected. I feel like really connected with the host, and I feel like they're speaking to me. I feel like we have a connection here. And then I was enjoying that podcast, so I went back and listened to early episodes of the podcast. I started from the beginning, where they hadn't started that yet. They were speaking to the audience and not to the person. And I was like, oh, this is different. It really feels different, and it doesn't feel as good. I don't feel as connected. I don't feel as important.
So apparently, when I said you hold listeners at arm's length when you use the plural, some guy was like, you don't hold them at arm's length. Okay. Here we go. No, you don't create distance. Oh, okay. Okay, Darren. What? Sure.
And Darren's not holding you at arm's length at all with his reply.
No, not at all. No. He's fully engaging with that idea.
Me thinks she protests too much.
Yeah, well, me also thinks it's interesting that this person has got a completely like almost pitch black avatar with a hidden face. It's like, oh, you want to talk about creating distance, do you?
Mm-hmm.
And an anonymous weird link. Anyway, not that I dive into this too much, but I don't know. It's as much as like you can read these things and being someone who wants to create harmony and wants people to get along. Like there's a bit that that sort of goes, oh no, everybody didn't agree with me. Okay, but there's not a part of me that goes, am I wrong?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I know this is right. I know this to be the case. And I love the fact that you've just pointed to it as well. But like, I know it to be true. And it is one of those things that people talk about. You need that thing that you see that other people don't, and people think you're crazy. And it's like, clearly there are people who don't. It's not the, because it's interesting. Like, I posted on LinkedIn and it did sort of nothing. So there are obviously people for whom it's just like, okay, cool. That's a way of thinking, or that's an idea, or I could use that. And a couple of people had said that on Threads, like, hadn't thought about that before, and that's fine. But the idea that it like makes some people go no, like they've thought about it enough that they're like, I reject this premise, shows that is interesting, and that there is a stance there is an opinion there that is not vanilla, and that's great. Because I thought it was pretty benign, might be the word, but but it turns out there's some people who like really want to cross their arms about it, which is great.
And so yeah, the people that follow the advice will stand out and make an impact more than the people that don't.
Yeah, it's just every time. I mean, there's so many of these like little chip-aways. Have you ever? Did you? Like, you're a musician. Did you ever do any like formal music, like with grades or anything like that?
I did choir for 3 years, multiple choirs, and then I took a music theory class in high school. And I took a music theory class in college and tested out of it because it felt behind me or below me or something.
Beneath you. Ooh, very good.
But then I didn't pursue it after that. So it was kind of, all the knowledge really fell out. I don't know the theory anymore. I know enough of the theory to know that I don't know it at all. That kind of thing. I know that there's so much to relearn, and I just feel like, I don't know. I just do what sounds good now.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Well, the reason I bring it up is I remember from my grade, my like piano grade, whatever, exams, we'd have to sit and play the piece. You start with a certain number of points, like 100 points. I think it's more than that, but let's say you start with 100 points. And so that's how you begin. And as long as you play the piece, if you play it perfectly, you get the maximum points, and then they take things off for what for perceived mistakes or deficiencies or whatever.
Interesting.
And that's so that's the way it works. And which sort of makes sense, because then you're starting from a baseline and you're just looking for errors, rather than which
it does make sense. Yeah, there's the full piece. That's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And I think for classical music, it makes a lot of sense, which is what I was learning. And I wonder if for like pop and rock, it might be different, because you want to give points for style, whereas the style in classical music is the style that is written on the page.
You got the moves like Jagger.
Yeah. It is, especially if it's like Baroque music, which is very mechanical, and it's diddle 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 diddle. You can do it right.
Yep.
There's definitely a right and a wrong way to play that piece, and it sort of I often think about that when it comes to podcasts, when I'm looking at them, looking at the landscape for a client or whatever. And I was doing that today and just going, yep, there's a point off that because there's a microphone in the artwork. There's a point off there because they've used the word podcast in the podcast title. And it's just, these little, in my head, I'm just like, I have like, everything starts off with maximum like 100 points. And then it's just like chip, 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 chip away. And then you hit play and it starts off with, hey guys, minus 20 points,
Yeah. Smash that like button.
Oh God. Hey fam. Yeah. But it's interesting like that. I mean, that debate in and of itself, or that, it's not a debate, but that whole question of like, because people were really getting hung up on people having a sense of community. And it's like, yes, I didn't say but there is language for that. We know how to do that. And I thought I'd explain that in one of my messages, but like, yeah, anyway, it's people gonna people.
People gonna people,
that's
for sure.
What that is. did we get the chance last week to talk about the mayor of Biketown? I can't remember, or the mayor of Bike Shed.
That does not sound familiar. No.
Okay. So because we had a very good chat about the whole the brief yes, I'm not going to use names the podcast that has now become evidence.
Yes.
Last week I got my e-bike and I put it in my bike shed, locked it. And did I tell you about the note that I received?
Oh, no.
No. Oh, okay. Right. So
a little passive aggressive note.
Because I chained my bike to the thing in the shed, because basically the history of the bike shed is that it never used to be a bike shed. It used to be like a general tool shed for the people who maintain the building. And I got a bike in 2015, and I was like, hey, could this be bike shed? And they were like, yes, this could be bike shed. Let's make it bike shed. We'll put a lock on it, and then it became bike shed. Great. So I maybe have an unearned degree of ownership over the tiny little building, but hey. So I put my bike in last week, and because it's heavy. Like I thought I could carry it up and down stairs, and I mean it's doable, but it's really unpleasant.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, pop it in the thing, and chained it up, because the last time I did that, my bike got stolen. So I'm like, I'm chaining it up. I went in to check on it on Friday to do a couple of things. I think it must have been after our call, and I saw this note that was like, please don't put your bike, what was it? Please don't chain your bike up and put it in the center. Because I put it in the middle because that was the best place for it to go. It turns out, apparently, because I'd asked my downstairs neighbor about like what the code is for the shed in case it had changed, and she said, yeah, here's the code. Someone keeps moving my bike, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And so what we now have is someone has appointed themselves mayor of Bike Shed, and has decided, they are deciding where bikes go, and they are deciding whether bikes should be chained or not chained. And yeah,
what the fuck?
I was a bit feeling, as I am, very cautious, nervous, apprehensive about being out in the world on a bike again, and all that kind of stuff. And we talked about like, am I allowed to be out and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I was already feeling insecure about that, and then to open the shed and be told I'm doing bike wrong, it's like, oh, I've got barely 24 hours I've had this bike, and I'm already doing it wrong. Like, this sucks.
Are there? I assume that you didn't consult the posted placard on the wall with all the rules on the shed use and who's allowed to.
Don't make me tap the sign.
I mean, like, seriously, what the fuck? Like, that's just dumb.
And I like, a bit of empathy, I can get it. Like they've come home from a day and they want to put their bike away. And this is the thing, like
they want to move other people's bikes around.
Yeah, exactly. Because they are mayor of Bike Shed.
Yeah.
They are obviously like, well, I put my bike where we go. Another bike is, what's this other, how, and now I can't move it because I'm in charge of Bike Shed. I should be able to move bikes. And now I can't, so I'm going to leave a note. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
And so I've been through the whole, denial, anger, betrayal, bargaining. I think I'm more or less at acceptance. But it was just like, it was one of those, like, all right, yeah. But, it's all good. I took it out for a spin on Sunday, and it was great.
Yay.
It's a really good bike.
Yay.
Turns out it's a really, really good bike.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm very happy with it.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. So, and hopefully it's still there, because I put it back in the bike shed on Tuesday because I went out for a bit. It had been upstairs, and I was like, I'm not carrying it upstairs again. I'm going to put it in the bike shed. Didn't chain it up because I didn't want another note, because this poor person's going to run out of sellotape. So I hope it's still there. If it isn't, I don't know what I shall do.
If I were you, and I'm not you, and you're not me, but if I were, I would put a note on my bike saying, I received your previous note. I locked my bike up because my bike was stolen within the shed when it was locked. So, unless you have another solution, this is, and then I might put my phone number on there if they needed to contact or reach out or something like that. But that's not for everybody.
And that's the thing. Like, no one left any kind of correspondence.
Yeah, it's just a bitchy note.
And I don't want to get into a passive aggressive note war. I just haven't got the energy for it. So I'd rather, you know what I mean? But I would like I'd like a resolution to be able to say, no, this is why. I'm sorry it caused you inconvenience, genuinely. Like, I understand putting it in the center, that is inconvenience due, and that's fair enough. And that's why they did what they did, because they were inconvenienced, which is fair enough. So, like, sorry you were inconvenienced, but also I'm not sorry that I changed my bike up, because but I don't want to end up with that being like note wars. It's the same thing with the thread thing. Like, I said my one piece, the guy was like, "You don't get it," and I'm like, "Cool, okay, I don't get it. Done. I'm not that guy anymore. Yeah. I've been that guy for so long."
Yeah, you have.
I must be heard. I must be understood. My point is not being understood. I must make it completely. Nah.
Which is what they're doing.
Yeah. I had a great chat with a chap on Wednesday, and he's helping me with my, like, what my actual offering is in terms of work and the money stuff around that. And I said, I've done a good bit of work here. I've properly got my site in order now, where it says, these are very simply, this is what I offer. And there's a couple of pages and it shows all the stuff and prices and things. And he said, "Yeah, that's all great." And he asked me a question like, "Are you comfortable with these numbers?" I said, "Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think I am, because I've got one program, or my, like, sort of flagship, if you like, where I work with a client. That's now, like, gone way up because I was way undercharging, and like, I know the amount that I do, and I know the amount that I pay attention, and the not the impact. I want to not use that word, but the meaning that what it can enable for other people. So it's for those that are prepared to and want to pay it, it's a high price. And there is also a call that you can just book with me, which I really enjoy doing these. That's now gone up as well, because it's like, if you sit with a problem solver and they solve your problem, and that's a problem that's been stopping you from doing your thing, you pay for what you don't know and all that stuff. And it was that one that he was looking at going, "Are you comfortable with your prices?" And I was like, you know what? I actually feel like I am now, finally. Like, I feel like I can stand by this because I've got options and I can meet people at different stages. It's not like if you're not at this bar, you can't come in. Like, I've actually got stages, and that feels good. So I sort of don't mind looking someone in the eye and saying, "Well, this is the price." And if they go, "Whoa, that's way too much," it's like, okay, well, here's something else. Run through it at your own pace or whatever. And he was looking at the page, and he was like, he was sort of making the point, you're really like, the reason I asked is, like, you're really justifying, like, you seem to be really working hard to justify this number. And I thought that was interesting, because for a start, I'd upped it to 90 minutes instead of an hour, and I always only used to do an hour. So there was that. But then it was like some of the steps that I was explaining about what I'll do and this, that, and the other. It's like, I don't care about that. I don't fucking care. Can you solve my problem? Are you going to jump on a Zoom call and get my issue resolved? And I'm like, yeah. That's kind of all people need to know. Yeah, they need to know, like, what kind of issues people are, because I was struggling to. I find this stuff really interesting. I don't know if it applies to you, but, like, it gets into weirdly on nuances of my job in that regard is to solve a problem. And I was having trouble with, like, the headline of, like, how do you explain that? And it was really interesting, because you realize the problem is not the problem. The problem is that you're stuck. The problem is that you can't move past it. So it doesn't matter what the problem is. The problem is that it's stopping you from doing what you want to do. And that's that. And suddenly you go, oh shit, right, okay. And I was trying to think of that in terms of like, the problem is not that your water is not running. The problem is you can't flush the toilet. The problem is you can't flush your poop away, or whatever it is. And so sort of realizing that, it's like, okay, it's all faced. It doesn't matter what your problem is. It's the thing that's stopping you from doing it. So that made it fairly easy to write about. And then like just made some little changes, and it's all looking good now. But it was interesting for someone to look at that and go, yeah, like you're working too hard for this. And I'm almost like, why is he justifying so much? So there's still that part that you charge a certain amount, and you feel like you need to live up to that amount because you don't feel like you're worth it.
Yeah, I just had kind of a similar situation. Not really, but a client reached out asking me for assistance with getting them permitted, and getting plans made up, and getting through that whole process and everything. And they asked me how much it would be, and so I just gave them a flat fee, which I typically don't do, but felt like it would, because they already have somebody doing the construction part, and so I know the limited scope of what they would be hiring me for. It wouldn't drift and spread and stuff, and I could always do a change order and new contract and whatever for the rest of it. But anyways, so I just gave them a price, and it's interesting just like naming a price for a certain, like, and I've charged more for this in the past, but it was a little bit of a different situation, and this time I was just kind of like trying to feel out, like, okay, this person, based on the emails that we've had going back and forth, what are they showing me signs of what would be good for them, and like, how much would be too much? How much do I really want to do this? Like, maybe I want to price it higher so that they don't even bother, and like they just go somewhere else, or like, no, but I know I'm helping them, so I do kind of want to finish it out and help them out. And so yeah, just kind of like gauging that and massaging that. I'm like, okay, what's the number? What's not going to be too high, but what's going to be worth my time? And
yeah, there's so much tea leaf reading and what I think a lot of it can come down to, and certainly with this gentleman's philosophy, is like getting people on a call and actually just figuring it out, like what would work for you. And yeah, starting with it, because at some point you've got to start with a number. And it's just sometimes and I think Merlin Mann might have talked about this before. Like sometimes it's just useful to have like a sense of how many zeros are involved, just so that you've got a sense of magnitude. Is this you thought this was a 2-0 problem? Actually, it's a 4-0 problem, and it's like, oh wow, we were living in very different worlds then. We're probably not gonna, that's not a thing we can negotiate on, because our expectations was so wildly different. But then it's it's there's so much. I mean, with every aspect of business, it's just so much nuance. But it's nice. Like I kind of feel like I'm starting to, after 3 years, I'm like, I know where it is, and I've wildly vacillated in terms of price and offering and all sorts of stuff. And that's just, I think, kind of experimentation and feeling out what fits. And I kind of feel like now, I think I've got it right. I think I've got the offer right, and it's it's good. Second patron saint of the show, Anya. Not Anna, but Anya, clued me into a fascinating thing yesterday called the vector theory of change.
Okay.
So this is rather than it's actually the antithesis of what we started out discussing.
Okay.
In terms of manifestos and like planting a flag in the ground and saying, this is the vision of the world as I want it to be, and I'm gonna pull myself like a man in a rowing machine, like pull myself ever closer towards it. The vector theory of change, as I understand it so far, is much more about what is the picture of the world now and what are small adjustments we can make, looking at what the actual situation is right now, not trying to dream up or create a new reality, but actually look at the current reality and go, working within this system, because you can use it for, developing a product, for example. Like, rather than saying, I've got this mad idea for an iPhone and no one's ever used a smartphone before.
Right.
I know that's not how it happened, but you go with me. You start with, well, what is the reality of the situation now? And you iterate. And I think that is interesting. It may be something that taps into when it comes to changing aspects of your physical body, it's your health. It's like, rather than putting this big pin in the ground or this big thing like over there, over that future me, that's the version that I'm envisaging, and he's over there across the bridge, and I know he's there and all that stuff. It's actually saying like, okay, well, what is closer to home? What are small adjustments that I can make on that sort of atomic habits kind of level to go further and further to where I want to be? And I thought, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd be happy. I'd be interested to learn more about that.
Yeah, I've got a thing from Kinefin, which I don't know what or who Kinefin is. I've got no Kinefin clue, but I do have.
There it is.
There it is. But I do have a thing for notes. So yeah, vector theory of change.
Cool. I'll check that out. Right now, I'm also checking out. Are you familiar with internal family systems?
I don't think so.
There's a guy, as a doctor, Richard Schwartz, had about 40 years ago created this model of psychotherapy called internal family systems, where within each of us there are parts.
Oh, yes, parts, yes.
Yes, parts work. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've been lightly familiar with. I'm still kind of lightly familiar with it, but for a while, and then now Margaret and I are reading his book No Bad Parts together, and because she's been doing parts work with her therapist for a year or so now, and it's been really helpful for her. And yeah, it's more. The more we're reading through it, it's really it's fascinating, and it feels so helpful and cool. We did a fun exercise where we just did this meditation practice to get into this mindset where we could envision one of the parts, and we did a little drawing of what that part looked like for us, or what represented that part for us, and then we would like sit with that part until they felt acknowledged, and then they'd be able to kind of stand back, because that's mostly a lot of it. The work around parts work is like acknowledging that we have these parts and just thanking them and being with them and acknowledging them and appreciating them, so that they don't have to work as hard. So they're like, okay, you hear me. I don't have to fight for your attention and take over. Yeah, and so then they step back, and then you see a pathway that leads you to another part, and then you acknowledge that part, and then you do a little drawing. And so I had this nice little notebook page of drawings and captions for a bunch of my parts, and that was really fun to do. And I'm excited to dive deeper into acknowledging my parts, because I feel like now I've done so much, psychotherapy work and work, spiritual work and other things, and this just feels like it's another, not layer, but like another a new lens to look at it through, and it's just fun to continue to work on that stuff and hone it down and be more centered, and eventually I'll feel normal, right? That's what happened. Mm-hmm. Not based on the vector theory of change.
You'll get to normal,
but my vector part right now is looking at my parts.
Nice. Yeah, that's That's something I think the other patron saint of the podcast has clued me in on, and there's also saboteurs, which is I think related, but I can't remember where that work comes from. But that's an idea that I think we have an essential true self. And then there are these parts of us that get in the way and sabotage us from sort of realizing that. And there's an assessment you can do to find out who your saboteurs or what your saboteurs are, and so you can see where that is perhaps unhelpful thinking or that kind of stuff.
So in internal family systems, it's all positive. So yeah, you have yourself, and yourself kind of gets Spartan surrounded by all these warriors who are holding up these shields and guarding you from things. They're all trying to help. There's no bad parts. That's the thing. And even if they're suicidal or they're harming others or they're doing it because they're trying to protect you, and they don't know how old you are. They think you're still a baby, and they haven't one of the meditation practices was ask your part to turn around and look at you and tell them how old you are, or ask them how old they think you are, and update them on how things have changed and let them know that they don't have to do that anymore. I mean, it's a fun, no bad parts. I really, we're only a couple chapters into it right now, but it's proving very effective and interesting. And I've already been thinking about swapping this book out for one of the others, the Gabor Mate book that I had on my list for God Mode. So, yeah, it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, that's another one to add to the fucking ever-growing list of fucking self-fucking improvement books.
Where's the Alan Watts book on that list?
At the moment, I'm doing no self-improvement at all. I am resting.
I get it. I'm actually, yeah, I had been resting until Margaret pulled out this book for us to read together too. But yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, so when I do pop on an audiobook at the moment when I'm doing a bit of cleaning or some chores or whatever, it's John Dies at the End by David Wong.
Spoilers.
Yeah. It's great. David Wong is the name of the lead character, it is the name of the author, but that's not his real name. He chose David Wong because David is the most common forname and Wong is the most common surname. And so that's not the character's real name either. It's all very it's good. He's very internet. He's very Gen X. There was a film made of it, which was, I remember being okay, but I think it's one of those tricky ones where the book is so characterful, that's not something you can really, I mean, it's funny I say that. Somehow Fight Club managed it. Somehow Fight Club managed to bring the character of when I say character, I don't mean the person, but the writing style, it somehow did a good job. It's because David Fincher's great, but yeah, it hasn't communicated the nuance in the book, but I'm enjoying it. So yeah, that's my current nod towards any kind of self improvement.
That's great. I've been full bore on music lately. So after the arbitration dates, my mind was finally able to acknowledge that other things exist in the world. And one of the things that popped back into my head is planning for my 40th birthday party. My mind was just okay, you don't have to think about anything important right now. So let's think about something fun. And so I spent an afternoon in a park just brainstorming a bunch of fun ideas of things to do. And so anyway, I just got a few minutes. I'll be quick. I don't do a lot of parties. I love hosting a party. Super love hosting a party, but I just don't do it very often. When I was a kid, I had a few birthday parties here and there, but then at a certain point, my parents started using this excuse that because my birthday was halfway between Christmas and New Year's, that kids were out of town, seeing family elsewhere, or there was snow, or there's just a bunch of reasons why kids couldn't get together. And so I just kind of stopped having parties at some point. It was probably around like...
Listener, I'm making a skeptical face.
I'm just reporting what my parents told me.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I'm being skeptical of that. Yeah. It sounds spurious.
It not only like, and I believed it. I was just like, oh yeah, I guess I just can't have a party anymore because...
Yeah, of course you did. Yeah.
So I grew up not really celebrating my birthday at all, and then that just kind of rolled into adulthood, and then now I get into this healthy relationship with Margaret, and she likes to celebrate her birthday, and she does, and she plans it herself. She picks like, oh, this is my day. I want to do these things, and I'll invite people if they want to come along. Amazing. And I'm like, holy shit, that's such a healthy, beautiful way to think about it. You're not relying on somebody else to do it for you. You're just planning it yourself and inviting people that you'd like to have come. And it's like, oh,
it's a very, or it feels like a very 9 thing, because one of the things about the Enneagram 9 is the tendency to self-forgetting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so that the idea that you wouldn't, because I'm the same. Like I mean, I was going to give you a piece of advice, and the piece of advice I'll give you now is like, don't do what other people don't have the party that other people want you to have, because that's the mistake I made. And it wasn't. I enjoyed my 30th way more than I enjoyed my 40th. It just wasn't. Yeah. And a lot of that is because the 30th I decided what that was going to be, and it went off and it was great. And then the 40th I had an idea for something, couldn't make it work, and then just ended up doing what other people said I should do. And it was like, none of this quite fitted together. And so, normally I wouldn't think I'm not going to do anything for my birthday, because what am I? I'm not anything. You do the 30th and the 40th and the 50th because it's about other people more than it is about, yourself. I think, if that resonates with you, then yeah. So I totally get it.
If I may ask, what was the idea for your 40th that didn't work out?
It was something I actually wanted to do for my 30th, and it was like, I'm not going to do it now because it just won't work. And I think I was trying to create a picture, a scene, what's the word? Trying to create an image of something that is probably not realistic or is based. So what I loved as an idea is finding a space with a piano, and I sit at the piano, and then for the night we just sing songs, and people bring instruments, they bring guitars, they bring drums, whatever they want to bring, and we just have a big old jam. And if you don't play an instrument, bring a tambourine, bring something you can thump. And I even had the idea of doing a full like songbook and having like a thing with a QR code that you could get on your phone, and people could just pick what song are we going to do, and there we go, flip to the page, here's the chords, here's the song, and let's do it, or it could be more organic. And that was my that was my thing, because like there's just nights when that happens. And what I sort of realized, I think I kind of gave up on the idea because it was just like, it felt like I was pushing this boulder up a hill. It didn't feel like people were engaging with the idea, because people wanted to do something else. And it's like, well, I guess your 40th is, or these big ones, they're not about you. And I think that's the problem. For other maybe healthier people, it is about them, because that's the point. But for me, I'm like, well, I guess it's about them. And like, if no one wants to do it, then that's, I guess we'll do what someone else said, what would be more normal, which was just, let's have some drinks. And then someone wanted to do a karaoke, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to. Okay, I guess we're doing that then. So the whole night, and it's like I'm not ungrateful because people turned up, and it was wonderful that they did. And I'm really grateful that they did. Some people traveled like from different cities to come and see me, and like that felt amazing. The fact that people wanted to come and spend time, even just for an evening, that's wonderful. And I'm so glad that they did. But it was just like it wasn't the night that I'd planned. So how far is yours away?
Yeah, December 28th. So I got plenty of time to plan this out.
All right. I'll make sure that I've got a date in the diary and a plane ticket.
Perfect. Oh man. Oh yeah. I you were on my list of people to invite, and I was like, I mean, I'll still send you the invite anyway, but so. I was not expecting you to make it, though. Like full service. Like you've got a room here. I will give you a ride around, like whatever you need. If you can make it happen, I will be there. Like we will make it happen. But then I could also tell you the plan to see if you even want to come for the event, because it's for me. It's for me. It's not for anyone else.
For me.
It's for me. Yeah. Actually, speaking of stand-up comedy, are you familiar with Greg Barrett?
I feel like the name rings a bell, but I've never not seen any.
He had a podcast called Walking the Room for a while, and then, well, way before that, he did a lot of stand-up stuff. And he had a special that was really cool, Uncool, I think, something like that, where he talked about like a concert for adults, and like concerts kind of like they start too late, and then the opener goes on for too long, and then the band comes on, and then they go away, and you have to wait for the encore. And it's like, no, just start at 5, play for 2 hours, play all the hits within there, no encore. You just finish at 9. You can go home and get to sleep. Like it's not the so. Yeah. Kind of going on that concept. Rock bands aren't really my thing anymore. I'm into the rave scene. None of my friends want to be out until 2 a.m. at a rave, like for great reason. Like I don't even want to. It's like it's sure. A huge barrier for me now. I have to be really a big fan of whoever is DJing to want to go. Like I just went to Andrew Bayer in Seattle, and that was phenomenal. But like he didn't come on in 12:30 in the morning. Like, and then I got an hour and a half dancing into him, and that was brilliant. It was bliss. I was just in the zone, out of my head, just moving, and in this group of people, and we're all just vibing so hard. It was amazing. And I can't really share that experience with people. And I want with my people, because they don't want to stay up that late. They don't know the scene. They don't know what they're in for. There's a big barrier there. I want to make an adult rave, or like a matinee rave, a matin rave.
Yes, matin rave. Yeah, I've done a rave at 7 a.m, so I can see this working.
Yeah,
I've done a silent rave,
a silent disco. Oh, those are so great. I like that, and I actually have considered that, but I think that this, I'm thinking about not silent and having it out loud. But I have a friend who is interested in being a DJ and getting into that, and so we've had a talk, and this is like. We're kind of considering this to be maybe his first gig, is like preparing. He's going to get his decks. He's going to start working and practicing, and we're going to do some stuff in person and making sure that it's going to be what I'm looking for and everything. But so that's really exciting. And I've been building set lists. So the thing. So I would be like I'm programming the opener and the middle and the like I'm setting the stage for the entire evening with my plan, and he would just be kind of implementing it so that I could dance to it, which is exciting. It's so exciting. So it would go from about it would start around 4 or 5, depending on exactly how we fill things in, and it would end around 10. And so it's still go into the night. You get nice and tired and stuff from dancing, but it wouldn't be so late. And you don't have to stay for the whole thing, because it doesn't end with a bang. It ends with a wonderful whimper. Like the right kind is like there's a crescendo and a release planned into this, instead of like the big thing at the end. It's a much more thoughtful, to me, the way I would want an event to go. So the way it would start off, getting people really pumped and involved. It's an hour-long set of Taylor Swift pop tunes. And so stuff that people know and recognize, they want to sing along to. It's approachable for everyone. Like everyone asterisks loves Taylor Swift. And then it would be a 2-hour set of trance music mixed with pop music. And these are all songs that I have picked out that I feel are incredibly invigorating, dancey, fun, creative, fascinating, impactful. And there's a big range. It's mostly kind of energetic stuff. There's a little bit of a range of like higher and lower. So you get some restful periods and some, big dancing periods. Then it's an hour-long set of melodic house music. So this is more of not a down tempo, but a slower tempo, slower mood, kind of like you're chilling out a little bit more. And then an hour-long set of actual chill, down tempo, like quiet meditation type music. That's like, just really like, okay, we went through a lot. Now we're just swaying. We're not dancing anymore. We're just basking in these waves of sound. Yeah. And then so that's like that's the main event. That's the dance floor. We'd rent a PA system, we'd get lights and stuff. And I don't know if I might do it at my place, because I have a good kind of setup for that. Or we might rent a space and do that. And then I have another idea of having like a rented, a couple of like casino tables and people to come like be dealers for like a blackjack or a poker table or other things, so that people could come like, all right, I'm dancing, I'm a little tired, I want to do something while I sit down, and like, you could buy in your chips for just a little bit amount, and then maybe whoever has the most chips at the end of the night can win a prize, or something. I don't know. I'm playing around with that idea. It's still up in the air, but that's the main idea. Is I want to have an adult rave. I want to have all my friends come over and experience what I love, and also for me to just experience this, like, to me, a perfect set, a perfect amount of music, a perfect event. And so it's been, that's what I've been doing lately. Is my mind was just like, oh, I gotta build these set lists. I gotta make these playlists. And so I've made 4 separate playlists of the 4 separate sections, and I know exactly how long each section will be. And so it's kind of funny. Like my Taylor Swift 1-hour set has about 2 hours of music in it. My 2-hour trance and pop set has like 6 hours of music in it.
Does it include Entrance?
I have never heard that.
When I wake each morning in a state of ecstasy, wanna stay in your arms forever, only love can set you free. It's a 90s trance, absolute stone cold banger.
Well, I'll have to check that out. I don't know that. God, that's great.
It's it's very early 90s, like kind of trance pop. It's great. As someone who's not, who's never hugely into it, like that, there was a period where like that's what was on, and there's a few tunes like that that are like, oh yeah. The stuff that I pick out is the following that it has is super hardcore, and it doesn't really break out of that. Like, we have our own silo of stuff that we want, that we love. It doesn't like get into the mainstream very much, and hipster that way. And it's so a little bit of it's like I kind of want to expose other people, like my crew, to it, because like
this is you probably haven't heard this, and it's so good. It's so good.
You just got to lead us in gently, just lead us in gently. You'll get us in. I can absolutely feel when you were describing it before. I think really get a sense of that euphoria and how the combination of the lights and the beats and the bass and how things interact and the bodies around you and all of that creating a transcendental experience. Like I get it.
Especially with just like just a little bit of weed edible or something that kicks in at the right time, and it is just bliss. So I told Cameron, the DJ, that like, all right, so here's my list. These are the songs I want to, you pick from here what works, what flows well, and it's like, this is just my long list of what I want to hear, and maybe like 10% throw in what you think, if something's not on the list but you think it would work or whatever, add that in. And so there'll be a little bit of surprise in there for me. It's not just stuff that I know by heart, it's stuff that and so I'm so excited, Very briefly, I did have that lunch with my mom and my sister that I talked about at the end of the last episode. It went all right. It was weird, but I stood up for myself in a way that I kind of was fearing that I wouldn't, because I think we've talked briefly about how her idea of getting a trailer and parking it in my driveway and living in my driveway, and so I shut that down. I shut that idea down because she came back and was like, okay, well, this other living situation isn't working out. So what can you offer me? And I'm like, I got nothing. I've got nothing. And she was like, okay, well, I thought we talked about like maybe, doing the driveway situation. I'm like, honestly, that would be just really bad for my sobriety. That would be really difficult for me. I would feel even if you didn't ask, which I know you would, I would feel compelled to do things for you. I would feel compelled to manage and be around and constantly be involved. And I need to be involved in myself right now. I'm still healing. I'm still recuperating. I'm still building my own life. And I don't have space for that right now. And so I kind of went into all that, and she took it in, and she, I don't know if she understood, but she accepted it at least. And then they had just come from seeing an apartment, and we're going back to seeing that apartment, and we're putting the deposit down on it. Like, they had another option already ready. And it was like, why are you even harassing me with this anyway? Harassing is a strong word, but like, I'll just all that. So, but yeah, I felt good. I going into it, I thought they were going to ask about that, and they did. And Margaret wasn't able to be there because she was at work, and I was kind of feeling like, oh, without her by my side, am I going to be strong enough to say this? Like, because her and I have had conversations like, yeah, we can't do that. But it's really easy to say that to your partner when they're not around, and then when they're, when their family's there and asking, "Can I have this thing? I really need it. Is it going to be okay? I'm not doing well, and I need this help." And it's like so hard to say no. I want to help people so bad, and especially my folks. It's like ingrained into me from childhood. So I just come off of that, and then I went to Refuge, and I had this like kind of this almost opposite experience where people are so giving and welcoming and everything, and so good to talk to you, man.
As always, as much as I felt my energy flagging, you are the pick me up that just gets me through that extra little bit of Friday.
Wonderful. Well, as always, correct me if I'm wrong, convergencepod@icloud.com. What is that? What are you doing? Bag? The bag is in the wrong spot.